Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for another Exclusive Networks TGIF webinar. My name is Chris Panaris, and I'm the Marketing Manager here at Exclusive Networks. Today's webinar will cover management and reporting with some demos in between. But like always, before we get into that, I want to take a couple minutes to inform any newcomers joining us today about how Exclusive Networks can add value to your business. So we are, of course, a value-added distributor for cyber and cloud security. With over 62 offices worldwide, we have the capability to handle international deals and logistics all around the world. We do pre-configuration and staging services. Of course, we're Fortinet's #1 global distributor. And we have rapid turnaround on quotes. You have direct access to account management and support resources like myself, and you always get to speak to a real person here at Exclusive Networks. And just to take you into a little bit about what we offer technical marketing and sales support with global reach that I mentioned, assistance with building qualified leads and closing deals, certification training in group and individual scenarios. We offer a wide range of financing and leasing services to cover a variety of IT project requirements and technologies. And we offer a growing list of vendor partners chosen specifically to integrate with each other. We also offer pre- and post-sale support, security tools migration, security tools jumpstart services, staging services, vulnerability testing services, cloud competency training, just to name a few. Today we have Juan Quintero. He is one of our sales engineers here at Exclusive Networks. So now it's time to get to the reason you are all here. Without further ado, Juan, please take it away.
Thanks, Chris. And thank you everybody for choosing to spend an hour of your Friday with us. My name is Juan Quintero. I work for Exclusive Networks out of the Miami office. Some of you, if you've joined some of our other webinar series, you probably have already heard me before. And today I'll be covering the topic for this episode. So we are going to talk about management and reporting, and management for the purpose of getting good reporting. So, beyond just the obvious configuration of, a FortiGate, you need to be able to cert certain things so that you can get logs, so that you can then make adjustments to your initial configurations, and so you can manage not only performance metrics, connectivity metrics, but also security metrics, and then so you can get alerts that are based on those metrics. So we're going to talk about management reporting on the FortiGate GUI. We're going to talk about FortiCloud. We're going to talk about FortiAnalyzer, and we're going to talk about FortiManager. And if we have time after that, and I hope we do, I have some bonus content that I have prepared surrounding the FortiOS API, and I'll be doing that demonstration at the end. All right, so why log, right? First and foremost, you want to see what's going on, not only in real time, but also historically. But most importantly, you want to be compliant, right? If you have heard any of my other webinar episodes that I have been the speaker for, you probably heard me say that, compliance is one of the biggest motivators for deployment of new technologies in the enterprise space. And I personally believe that to be true. And the logs is the information that will give you the ability to stay in compliance. So firewall logs are the login sentries posted up on the proverbial wall, and they can respond to real-time alerts and backtrack to see what happened, last week, last month, 6 months in the past, and what have you, depending on your logging options. So first, I kind of want to give you guys an overview of the logging flow and the different types of logs, and then we'll get into the different platforms and what have you. So essentially, this is a pretty self-explanatory diagram. Here you have traffic flowing from point A to point B, and point A in this case is your LAN network, so any one of those 3 computers, point B being a server that can be anywhere. And that traffic is flowing to a security device, in this case, a FortiGate. When the traffic flows to the FortiGate is going to inspect the traffic based on the policies that you set, and the activity will be recorded in logs. And those logs are going to be stored. Depending on your configuration, they may be stored on the FortiGate itself, on FortiCloud, FortiAnalyzer, and or FortiManager. So log types and subtypes. You have three main types of logs. You have traffic, event, and security. And then within each of those, you have subtypes. So for traffic, you have forward traffic, accepted or rejected traffic based on policy, local traffic to and from the FortiGate's management IP addresses, and also connections to the FortiGate GUI and FortiGuard queries, also sniffer traffic if you have configured that. In the event, you have system events, you have user events, you also have VPN events. So a lot of the performance-based events are going to be in this category. And then finally, you have your security type. And under that, you have all your AV, your anti-spam, DLP, web filtering, web application, IPS, etc. So beyond the types, we also have the severity levels, okay? And this is going to be important when you configure email alerts, because there are different ways that you can configure such alerts. And one of those ways, as illustrated on the right, is by what kind of severity level you want to receive alerts on. So these are the 8 levels from emergency all the way to debug. I'll give you guys a couple seconds to kind of look at this table. Obviously, 0 is emergency. So those are the most important. And then all the way down to debug, which is number 7. All right, so here we have what a log would look like in raw text. And there is 2 parts to this. You have the header and then you have the body. And there is important information in both. So in the header, you have things like the type and the subtype. And we looked at just 2 slides ago. And we also have the level, which we saw in the previous slide. In addition to that, we have timestamps, and we also have the VDOM where this message originated from. If you have a FortiGate that has different VDOMs, and VDOM stands for virtual domain, so basically that means that you segmented your physical firewall into a number of virtual firewalls, then the VDOM would be important. In the body, you have the policy that the log belongs to, and then you have information about what the message is trying to say, you know, what the alert is. So source and destination, the host name, the action, as well as the message. Because this is a web filter message, obviously you're gonna have things like the host name being a website. Also, I want to, I guess, get this out early so that you guys understand logging affects performance. So the choices you make with your logging strategy, and we'll talk about different strategies as we go on through the episode, is gonna have implications on the performance of your appliance. And then I kind of chose to put this down here on the right. So for example, performance logs, unless the environment dictates that you send performance logs with a high level of, with 1 minute, every 1 minute, you could set that to every 15 minutes, for example, and that could alleviate the performance a little bit. That's just one small thing that you might be able to do. Okay, so log management best practices. So I guess the advice I can offer from what I have seen in previous roles is make sure you have a plan. And unfortunately, the plan is not a one-size-fits-all. You know, plans are dictated by the environment and a lot of the times by things such as the compliance requirements for that environment and for that client. And so they need to be adjusted. You can have definitely some templates, and then from there, you can adjust based on your project. And when you talk about cybersecurity, cyber warfare, again, in my experience, the warfare, not only in my cybersecurity experience, but also military experience, the battlefield is highly fluid and highly dynamic. And usually your best laid plans, they go out the window in the first 10 minutes. So, you need to have a plan, and that plan needs to, address things like what do you want to log, where are you going to send the logs, okay? And, is it cost prohibitive to choose one solution over another? What are your limitations with the solution that you can choose? Do you need to archive those logs? Do you need encryption on those logs once they're being sent or archived somewhere else? Are you going to choose a remote login solution? If so, which one? Make sure you configure alerts, because you can have all the logs you want. If nobody's getting any emails or any alerts of any kind, then you might as well not be logging anything. And then, of course, you have to make sure that you, within your plan, you need to set intervals to revisit your plan, to make sure that you make adjustments based on what you've seen. And, very important, we spend a lot of time and resources on events like this. And also on a one-on-one basis, we try to train people and coach people and help our partners with their projects. So, let us help you. You're not alone. You have Fortinet, so you've definitely chosen a great technology partner. And I believe you've also made the choice to have a great distribution partner in Exclusive Networks. So if you have questions, or if you want to level up your Forti skills, just contact us. And myself, David, Simon, and the rest of the resources that we have are at your disposal. All right, so let's talk about local logging. And that would be, logging on the FortiGate. And I kind of put this, very big here. If you're going to choose to do local logging, make sure that you're buying a model that has onboard storage, because if you don't, then the logs are going to be stored in memory, and you definitely don't want that, right? Now, don't worry, because Fortinet's got your back. With every UTM and enterprise bundle that you purchase, you are going to receive FortiCloud for free, and also FortiCloud Sandbox. We'll get into that in a minute. But essentially, that means that you can send at least 7 days worth of logs to FortiCloud, and they will be available for you there. If you want more than 7 days of logging in FortiCloud, then there is an additional licensing that you can purchase for 1 year retention, and that will allow you to have up to 1 year of logs. So if you're choosing to put your logs on the FortiGate, make sure that you have that enabled. We'll look at in the next slide how to do that. Understand disk allocation. Understand first and foremost that you can only use about 75% of your disk space for logging. Monitor your usage. We'll also look at how you can do that. And configure behavior when the disk actually becomes full. Because if you're logging on board with onboard memory, your resources are finite. Your SSD that's packed in there obviously is not unlimited. So there will come a point where you may run out of disk space. All right, so first and foremost, you will go to log and reporting, log settings, and you will enable local logging, enable local reports, and enable historical FortiView. And then in the same screen, you can also take a look at your disk usage. You can take a look at your disk usage using the CLI with this command. Now, if you run this command in a FortiGate that doesn't have internal onboard SSD, you're going to get an error because there is no disk. And the option that would be here under local logs would be memory. And you don't really want to do that. Again, login affects performance. Also, to configure what happens when the disk is full, there are two options. You can see them down here. So you can either override or you can stop logging. Override is the default, and it means that the older logs are going to be deleted to make room for the new ones. But you can configure it to stop logging, which means that you keep your old logs, but you are not going to get new ones. All right, so more on local logging. So a few slides ago, I talked about having a plan, and I've seen some of our some of our partners' projects and things like that. So there's a few things that I want to point out here. When you're planning what to log, it is important again that you look at the environment and specifically what's happening, and keep in mind again that logging affects performance. So for example, if we look at the slide on the left, there's kind of two messages here. Number one is don't just log everything, log what applies to you. If you don't have any HA, or you don't have any Wi-Fi, or you know you don't have any VPN, then why are you logging that? At the same time, I see on the right a lot of folks that on their policies are logging UTM events only. And I understand that, you know, their mindset is, you know, I want to make sure that whatever your alerts are going to be based on those events, because that's when a policy is triggered, that something is trying to kind of bypass or circumvent those security policies that you set forth. But the problem with logging UTM events only is that you're not going to get any logs on the allowed traffic, which means that if the environment has changed and now the initial plan that you made early in the battle is no longer a good plan, how are you going to know that? Or if you made a misconfiguration and there is something that in your mind you should be blocking and you think you're blocking, but the policy is not configured correctly and you're only logging UTM, how would you know that? So it is important to keep those things in mind when you're setting your policies and your whole strategy around logging. All right, so one of the things that we're going to look at in the FortiGate is FortiView. FortiView gives you a real-time and historical data into a single view on your FortiGate. And these are some of the categories that you can get information about. So source destination, applications, policies, compromised hosts, interfaces, endpoints, users, depending on your configuration environment, websites, threads, and also sessions. So the most important thing about this slide is actually at the bottom. Know your limits, and you will see that how far back you can go in FortiView is actually based on your model. And this description down here is how, you know, how each model has whatever their limitations are. So smaller models, you can get 5 minutes to an hour, medium models up to 24, and then larger models up to 7 days. All right, so now we're gonna go into our first demo. And so let me go ahead and bring this up into the page. So this is one of the FortiGates that we have here for our environment. Make sure that you are using a strong password when setting up your administrative login. And also, every FortiGate comes with 2 Forti tokens. So you can certainly use one of them for admin login and set up 2-factor authentication and make even harder to log into. So you basically prevent anybody from going in there that you don't want them to. Okay, so let's look at the settings for login reporting. That will be here. Now this model, it's a model that doesn't have onboard storage. So the whole disk option is not available here. So the only option is to log in memory, right? Or to send your logs to FortiCloud, which is the option that you should choose in this case, because you have included FortiCloud with your UTM or enterprise bundle. You also, and you will set that up here. So after you register your FortiGate in FortiCloud, you come in and you set up your cloud login here. And then here you have the intervals for how often you want to send logs to FortiCloud. Then down here, you can kind of see a view of what the logs are broken down. Obviously, in most cases, traffic logs are gonna be the majority of the volume. This is where you would kind of customize your event and local traffic logging based on your circumstances. I do have HA in this environment, so that's why that is selected. So then next we're gonna go to FortiView. And these are the fields that you can see in FortiView. Okay, so you guys notice what I was talking about? So these are the options that are available to me in this model. Now, if I go to another model, and not two-factor authentication on that one. Shame on me. Same screen, right? So I only have now. This is a model. So again, remember the limitations. So we have source, we have destinations, we have applications that are being used, we have websites that are being accessed. Also, you can change the view by choosing any of these categories, and you can make it a bubble chart if you want to. I find that some of these are just for being pretty mostly. The table obviously gives you a better view. Threads, which should not have very much. And also, you can have a view of which policies in your environment are the ones that are being hit the most. A lot of these things you can click on and drill down, get more information. So it kind of just adds that policy to the filter, and then you get all the other categories, but based on the filter that you've applied. So beyond that, you can go back to login and reporting, and you're gonna have logs here for forward traffic, local traffic, sniffer traffic if you configure that, events, antivirus, web filter, SSL, etc. Except mine are blank. Why are they blank? Let's check another one. Oh, I got nothing there either. Application control. The answer to this question is because in settings, I'm not logging anything locally. So there's nothing there because everything is going to FortiCloud. But also there is the issue of the policies. So in your policies, and these are my policies, you have your security profiles, and your security profiles kind of translates to the licenses that you bought for antivirus, for IPS, for application, all of that. And you need to apply such policies for each, you need to apply such profiles for each policy. So if you notice here, most of the policies look kind of the same. I have these 5, some of them I have this 4. And then down here, I have a policy for Wi-Fi that I have something applied that is not in any other policy, which is the DNS filtering. So if we go back to log and report, and we already saw that everything was blank, but I did turn it on for a little while so it could collect. So I should be able to see some older DNS query logs. Okay, good. So if you notice on this logs, right, is that, they all have the same VLAN, right? Why do they all have the same VLAN? And this question has already been answered in the chat. It's because I'm only querying DNS on that one policy. So the message to take away from here is that first and foremost, understand the options that you've chosen. So don't panic if you go to a log and you don't see anything. That just means you're sending the log somewhere else. Secondly, in your policy, and we saw this in the slide, make sure you're logging. Your options are all UTM or disable. I strongly recommend all, UTM if you have to, definitely not disable. So beyond FortiView, login and reporting, and also you have monitor. So in monitoring, you can get a number of other analytics, including FortiClient monitor. If you have FortiClient in your environment, you're going to get user information for the devices. And that user information is going to appear in any analysis dashboard that can have user information based on a device. So if you have devices in your environment that are used by multiple users, and you wanted to be able to pinpoint the activity, you know, FortiClient is a great way to do that. I don't really want to talk too much about FortiClient because our next episode will be on that, and I can just see how Simon is sitting over there in Canada, you know, silently telling me to shut up about FortiClient, so I will do that. But it speaks volumes to the overall Fortinet solution. You know, the components are not important anymore. What's important is the overall solution, and Fortinet with their fabric, they can cover so many different vectors or verticals that are needed in pretty much every environment, that, you know, when you say Fortinet's got your back, they pretty much have a good product for a ton of the things that you can need in most conventional deployments. All right, so now that we talked a little bit about local login, let's talk about remote login and management. So these are the three options that we're gonna cover. We're gonna look at FortiCloud, FortiAnalyzer, and FortiManager. And this is kind of like a little chart I made up. These values are not really hard set, but it's just kind of my opinion. And I kind of rated them on complexity, cost, complexity, reporting, and management. So first you start with FortiCloud, which has the lowest cost because it's included with your UTM or enterprise bundles, which, by the way, that's a great thing that Fortinet does. There are other vendors that they charge you for your UTM licenses and then they charge you for cloud access. So it's nice to see that Fortinet decided to include that. Then we have a complexity metrics, where for me personally, the complexity of FortiCloud is very low, whereas the other two are a little bit more involved. So please let us help you if you need the help. The reporting, obviously, you know, I would say that when you look at the granularity of FortiAnalyzer and FortiManager compared to FortiCloud, that's where they are better. Not that you can get a ton of reporting with FortiCloud, and we'll see that. It's just that your ability to customize. And when you have a growing or a large environment, you know, FortiAnalyzer and FortiManager are purpose-built software for analytics and management. So obviously, you know, they're gonna have a greater level of granularity than what you're gonna get with FortiCloud. All right, so FortiCloud is subscription-based, cloud hosted. So the cool thing about FortiCloud is that it's already pre-made for you. You don't need to really do anything other than log into it, and we'll see all the dashboards, all that stuff is in there. Included with UTM and enterprise bundles includes cloud sandboxing. Sandboxing gives you the ability to send applications traversing your network for breakdown and analysis, and then you get a go or no go validity later. It is good if you have a small deployment. It does offer multi-tenancy. So essentially you can have, it gives you the ability for MSPs, MSSPs to be able to manage sub-accounts. That is an additional license, as is log retention over 7 days. So 7 days for free. And then if you want 1 year, you do have to pay for that. All right, so then we have after that FortiAnalyzer and FortiManager. Both are options for remote logging. Both can be a hardware appliance, can be a VM in private or public cloud. That means that you can have a VMware environment and put it in there, or you can put it in AWS or any other cloud provider. Or there you can have a purely SaaS option with Fortinet's cloud. They share common hardware and software. you're gonna see that the software for both of them looks very similar. They have different capabilities and purpose. So FortiManager is about centrally managing FortiGate devices. So you can actually configure FortiManager as a FortiAnalyzer, but they have some hard limits on the amount of logs that you can ingest, because the purpose of FortiManager is about, management. So, your rules, your configs, your licensing, your upgrades, and things like that. Whereas FAST, as I like to call it, that's their acronym for FortiAnalyzer, is all about analytics. So take a lot of data and give me reports and charts and show me what's going on, right? So FAST is the closest thing that you can get to a SIM platform if you're just looking at only ingesting information from Fortinet devices. Because Fortinet also offers a FortiSIM, so that's a full-fledged solution. So it can ingest logs from workstations and servers and things like that, like a traditional log collector. FortiAnalyzer can give you a ton of analytics and alerts for Fortinet appliance. There's two ways to set up logging. One is through the login and reporting screen, and the other one is through the security fabric settings. I kind of saw this on the Fortinet documents, and I wanted to share with you. I personally think it's important just to highlight the differences, especially between FortiAnalyzer and FortiAnalyzer Cloud. This is all the stuff that you can send here, which, so there are some limitations with this option. And obviously, you can pretty much send anything to syslog. All right, so let's get back to some demonstrations. So first and foremost, I actually want to go back to the FortiGate and look at the settings here. All right, so if you wanted to send logs to FortiAnalyzer, you would just click that on, put in the IP, test connectivity, and then pick your intervals. Right now, if this is all you did, you would have the option to do it in real time, every minute, every 5 minutes. You can also verify the certificate for FortiAnalyzer by clicking on this toggle here. You can enable send logs to syslog, and then all you need to just put the IP of it down here. This is one way. The other way is through the security fabric settings. So if you choose to enable security fabric so that Fortinet devices can send telemetry about the whole environment, and you can have a global view of everything that's connected together, and you can see in this dashboard or in this GUI information about downstream devices and devices that are connected to downstream devices, right? Then you would set up FortiGate telemetry, and you would include the interfaces that you want included in the telemetry. You would set up a group, and then if this is the edge FortiGate, which means this is the one that's facing the outside, any other internal segment FortiGates, you would do the same process, except you will click on join existing fabric, and you will give it the name of the fabric. And they will find the I guess the master, you could call it that, the root FortiGate. And then as soon as you enable this, automatically FortiAnalyzer logging is required in order to do that. And also, by the way, in order to set up a security fabric with FortiAnalyzer, it is recommended that you have at least 2 FortiGates, because otherwise, number one, it's going to be cost prohibitive, and number two, it's just not enough. You need at least 2 FortiGates. When you do this, though, if you're doing FortiGate telemetry, you see how every minute and 5 minutes, that is no longer a choice. So you have to send information in real time. And then you still have the option to send logs to FortiCloud. And then you can have not only FortiAnalyzer configured, but you can also configure central management to FortiManager. All right, so let's actually now go to Analyzer. Kind of want to start with Analyzer. Just bear with me for one moment here. Okay, so this is FortiAnalyzer. When you first log into it, it's gonna look something like this. And just to kind of show you, I got locked out of this thing. I'll log back in. So just to show you what I was talking about, similarities in the hardware and software, they look very similar. Now you have these widgets, and clicking on them, will take you to where you want to go. For example, if you click on settings on both of them, it looks pretty similar. You're gonna get, the widgets are organized kind of in the same way. And this is nice because there are some other platforms where they have different components and they look strangely very different from one another. So it's like having to learn how to ride a bicycle each time. So it's nice that the GUIs they look familiar, right? So actually, before we get into that, let's go to FortiCloud. So this is FortiCloud. So in FortiCloud, you can actually have multiple devices. So each of these rectangular widgets, it represents a FortiGate. Now that FortiGate could have a multitude of other things connected to them. And you can see all of that if you have a security fabric from logging in here. But each of these little bundles is treated separately. So you wouldn't be able to, from an analytics perspective, really aggregate the stuff. So, and I actually just noticed the time, so I kind of have to speed up. So FortiGate Cloud, you have analysis, management, sandbox. Analysis, this is kind of the same thing that you had in the analysis in your FortiGate, that's also available here. And as you can see, 7 days is the max I have because I just have the free license. So looking at your web filter for the last 60 minutes, and then clicking on them gives you more information. So you have FortiView, the same FortiView that you had on the FortiGate. You have some nice maps. And then clicking on them gives you more information. You have logs, you have reports. These reports can be configured. And if they are configured, you can actually send them to whoever you like on a pre-configured interval. And, basically from there, you can discuss what is on the report with your clients. Management is the same as if you were in the FortiGate. So you have your system settings, your network settings, so your interfaces, your policies down here, user and device, your security policies. So these would be the same as what you have on your FortiGate. They look a little bit different on how it's outlined, and it has this blue color versus the one from the FortiGate. But it's, again, it should look familiar. You have your options on the left, and then when you click on one, it displays on the right. You have your backups. You can configure backups by day or by session. By session means every time you log in, when you log out, there's a backup done. Or you can just do a backup. And that backup is there now. Upgrade. So if there's a new firmware, you can push it out to the FortiGate from here. Or also you can upload and execute scripts. So this final piece is your free FortiSandbox Cloud. And in my particular case, I'm sending everything. So this gives you a breakdown of the type of applications, and everything is clean. So if I unclick this, there'll be nothing. And of course, this is the IP from my laptop. from which I am broadcasting today. So it's going to have the most traffic. So besides that, you have FortiAnalyzer and FortiManager. FortiAnalyzer is all about analytics. So when you come and you look at this SOC, you're going to see maps. You're going to see, you know, source and destination traffic and potential threats and things like that. Whereas in your FortiManager, if you look at the SOC, it's a completely different story. You're looking at, you know, configuration required actions. You're looking at connectivity. You're looking at support contracts that are coming soon or that have expired. You know, so that's the mindset. You know, when I talked about this device as being purpose built, you know, one of them is for analytics, and the other one is for management. So in FortiAnalyzer, I kind of want to highlight the, actually, let me go to reports, the granularity of this platform. And when you look at all the templates that are available, and these are customizable, you have your compliance templates for reports. I've already made one report. And then once you run the report, you can view it in a PDF or HTTP format. I don't really like HTTP, so let's do PDF. And it has this nice cover, a table of content. There's not going to be any much information, but you actually get a PCI compliance breakdown and also metrics about how organizations are put into the different categories. And then here you would have the actual metrics. All of this is, you know, you can customize, you can make your own reports. So if you're in LogView and you want to make a report about traffic, you just come over here and you create a chart, you name it whatever you want, you kind of add what you want, it gives you a preview here. Then once you have that chart, you go back to your reports, and in your chart library, it should now be here. That's the chart that I created earlier. And then to create a report, just create you just created a new report. You go to layout, insert chart, and guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna put the chart that we just created. Put that chart in there, apply. There's a ton of other configuration that you can do. I'm not gonna get into that because we don't have really a lot of time. But then you click on it, you run it. It should take a few seconds. And again, I don't know if there's gonna be much information in there because I just kind of arbitrarily picked something. And then you do have, you know, the table that we created in the chart view. There's different charts you can create. They don't have to be tables. They can be pie charts. You know, you can have a ton of other things in there. Now, FortiManager is more, again, about, you know, your policies and objects. So it should look kind of like what your policies screen looks like on the GUI. This is actually the FortiAnalyzer and FortiManager in San Jose. It's not mine, but here you would have an option under policies. If the devices were in here, you will be able to see all your policies from all your devices in one view. We're talking multiple FortiGate devices. So you would be able to filter for the device you're looking for and make changes here. So other things that you know you can do from here is you can create templates for deployment. So when you're talking about you know, pre-deployment prepping and things like that, you can do all of that with FortiManager. You can look at your firmwares, you can look at your licensing. Actually, there is one here, that's the FortiGuard. Okay, so these are all your licenses for all the equipment. We see here that one of them has expired. I want you guys to kind of pay attention to this screen, right? So to get all your licenses for all your devices that are controlled by FortiManager, you will log into FortiManager, you will go into FortiGuard, and you will be able to see them there, and then you can proactively communicate to your clients, say, hey, I notice you have stuff that's coming due. You know, what do you want to do about that? Another thing that I want to highlight about both FortiManager and FortiAnalyzer is they have this thing called ADOMs, or administrative domains. So you can have multiple Fortinet devices that are managed by FortiManager and FortiAnalyzer, and you can separate them with administrative domains. So essentially, you can have administrative domain for FortiClient, administrative domains for FortiAnalyzer. You can manage FortiAnalyzer from FortiManager. So you can set up FortiManager as FortiAnalyzer, but again, know your limitations. There are some limits in the amount of logs you can take, or you can set up a, unfortunately, I can't demonstrate that today, but you know, we can certainly do that later on. You can set up where you can manage FortiAnalyzer from FortiManager. So, you know, when you talk about, I guess, not having too many dashboards, because then you just go crazy, this helps you to just, you know, log into, you know, one place. So the last few minutes, I actually want to spend it on API stuff. So this is the bonus content that I was talking about. So then what's the next thing? You know, you started with a FortiGate, and you have the ability for free to access and look at logs and reports and create reports, you know, basic stuff like that for free with FortiCloud. And then you grew, you have a ton of stuff in the wild. So now you have Analyzer, you have a really good analytics platform, you have Manager, you have a really good management platform. So the next step after that should be, you know, automation and orchestration. So if this, then that. You know, be able to programmatically trigger a behavior based on, or trigger an action based on behavior, or trigger a behavior based on an action, whatever you want to do without having to actually do anything. Again, this is another area where Fortinet really shines. Their API is super powerful, and they give you a ton of resources for free for you to learn how to do it and try it. And I want to actually show you guys how to do that. So what you're gonna need is obviously a FortiGate, right? And you're gonna need a Fortinet Developer Network account. Now, if you don't have one, in order to get one, what you have to do is you have to go into the Fortinet Developer Network and sign up. And there you have to list the email addresses of 2 people at Fortinet, which you should already have a rep. And you should already have at least one other person. If you don't, then you can get with me or David or any of us here exclusive, and we will notify a second person that you can put in there. And once they have both approved your membership, you will receive an email, and you can log in there and you can start playing with the API again for free. All right, so let's kind of quickly walk through how that setup would look like. I think what's taking the longest is me logging into this FortiGates. Okay, so you're in here. You're gonna go to settings. First, you need to create an admin profile, and depending on what you want to do, you're gonna give it either read or read and write access. And then you're gonna create an administrator. It needs to be a REST API administrator. And there's a few important things you need to put in here. First, a trusted host. And secondly, you need to disable this first thing. And then you need to put this in here. This is the address for the Fortinet Developer Network, right? And then you're gonna generate a key. Make sure you copy and put it somewhere, because you're not gonna be able to see it after the first time. So once you have that done, you're gonna go into the Fortinet Developer Network, which is this website, into API. Actually, there's APIs for all this stuff, but today we're gonna do FortiOS, which is the one that handles the FortiGate. And in here, actually, okay, so we'll go this way in the interest of time. In here, you're gonna choose your OS, right? 6.0 or 6.2. And depending on your patch level, you choose the correct one. And then there's gonna be two paths that you can take. I do want to make sure that you guys understand the main call is always gonna be the same. IP, API, version 2, and then you're gonna go one of two ways, either monitor or actually configuration is CMDB. And then from here, you can kind of see all the endpoints that you can hit. So I picked the licensing one because it was just an easy one. And then you have get and post. Get, make sure it just means that you're retrieving information, whereas post, put, and delete means you're actually making some changes. So those are the ones you gotta watch out for, make sure you're doing it right. Otherwise, you could have some less than desirable effects. So let's try this one. You hit try it out, and then you execute it. And if everything went according to plan, you should have a 200 code. That means it worked. And then here, you should have all your licenses. Now, this is not very friendly because this is in a timestamp format, right? So, this is, I'm wasting your time. What are you gonna do with this? So this is the way that you can test it, and then that you can get your call if you're using curl, which is if you guys have dev guys in your shop, they'll know what this is, or this is the actual HTTP request. So then you take that information and you take it into a platform, something like Postman or Ansible. Those are both platforms that help you with, Ansible is actually a lot more powerful. It has a lot more capabilities, but Postman is free. And this is another way that you can do your API calls from here. So let's see, this is one that I have for the license. Same thing, so this is the same call from Postman, right? So I basically copied and pasted that URL that was on the Fortinet Developer Network, and you put it here. And you should have, the same effect. But still, this is not a date. That's a time span. So how am I going to read that? And that's actually where exclusive networks kind of comes into play. So the next step would be to throw something like that into a programming language, right? And make it into an actual call where you can take those timestamps. If you don't have the resources in your own shop, right? We can help you. We can help you do that. So this is essentially the same call, right? And then the output of this call is a CSV file. And that CSV file has this. So now these are dates you can read. So if you guys remembered, this was in FortiManager, but you have to log into FortiManager, go to FortiGuard and read that. Or you can have a script that runs in a VM somewhere or in a container somewhere that does this programmatically every so often, and you get the licenses for all your clients in a CSV that then, depending on where you're storing it, you can have it programmatically sent as an attachment or what have you. So, if you are offering services, usually there is few of you, and hopefully if you guys are doing well, I hope you all are doing well, a lot of clients. So every minute you can save, time is money, right? So there's one last thing I kind of want to show you guys that is very cool. And then that will be the end if we have time. And if we don't have time, somebody has to tell me because I'm just going to keep on talking. Because that's just kind of what I like to do. Okay, so this is the internal segment firewall. And we have two policies, right? So here, we're going to fire up this, and we're going to take this token. We're going to copy it, and then we're going to go to global variables, and we're going to put that there. We're going to save it. And then we're going to come in here, and this is, let's see, we're going to create a policy. Going to send that. We're going to get a 200 code. And if we look at it, let's refresh it. And we just created a policy on the FortiGate remotely through a few lines of code. But it doesn't have any security profiles. So we probably want to fix that. So the difference between a post and a post usually is so you can create something new. Put is so you modify something already created. So we're gonna give it some security profiles. Gonna send that. We're gonna get 200 code. We're gonna go back to the FortiGate. And, oh, look at that. We now have some security profiles added. And finally, we decided that we didn't really like this policy. So we are going to delete it. And just like that, it's not there anymore. So that was, in my opinion, fairly easy to do. And again, you guys are not alone in this. So we can definitely help you do stuff like this so you can make better use of your time. Just remember this, IP address, API version 2, and then you're gonna go down one of these two paths. So that's basically all I got for today. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned, even if just a little something new. That's always great. I really appreciate, and I apologize for going over a few minutes, but I really appreciate you guys' time today. I know most of you, all of you should be really busy. So the fact that you chose to spend an hour of your time with us, it means a lot to me personally. So these are the resources for today's episode. And one more slide about our vendors. Like Chris mentioned in the introduction, we handpicked our vendors because they integrate well. Okay, and right at the top we have Fortinet, because Fortinet, they have a ton of great, they have a great solution, and the things that they offer for free. Now they're pushing SD-WAN. When you look at Gartner and what they say about consolidation in SD-WAN and how you're able to do SD-WAN on the same box that you're doing your security features, that is a huge value. So if you have any questions, or if you want to talk about more about Fortinet or any of our other vendors, please make sure that you reach out to us, and we would be more than happy to do that. If you want to email us, my email address is the one right in the middle of that. Also, we have Alex's email. She's the vendor manager for Fortinet. And David, my boss, the real brains behind all the Fortinet stuff, his email is right at the bottom. Thanks, Chris.
All right, everyone. That's all for today's episode. Thanks again, and we hope to see you next time.